Following Israel's rejection of Ilhan Omar's and Rashida Tlaib's travel request, Tlaib upped the ante by using her own grandmother as a pawn. A leaked recording of a New York Times town hall meeting reveals the company's true agenda, and Alexandria Ocasio-Cortez has apparently figured out exactly what makes Trump supporters tick. All that and more. I'm Bobby Eberle. This is a 13-minute news hour.
And God bless the United States of America.
All right, friends, welcome to the show, and what a weekend. We got a lot to cover, so let's just dive in. On Friday, we covered this whole story about Ilhan Omar and Rashida Tlaib being rejected for going into Israel on a trip that they wanted to do. But since we did that story, there was so much that went on later Friday and over the weekend, and I just wanted to bring you up to speed. So remember, what we covered before was Ilhan Omar, Rashida Tlaib. They wanted to go to Israel. They were sponsored by a group that has been denounced by Israel. So the foreign ministry, the government, denied their request. They said they couldn't come in, and Ilhan Omar took to Twitter and said this. She said, "It is an affront that the Israeli Prime Minister Netanyahu, under pressure from President Trump, would deny entry to representatives of the U.S. government." All right, so that's Omar. And then Tlaib jumped in with some of her own. She said this woman right here is my city. She deserves to live in peace and with human dignity. I am who I am because of her. The decision by Israel to bar her granddaughter, a U.S. congresswoman, is a sign of weakness because the truth of what is happening to Palestinians is frightening. All right, so after that, and we went into some of this, Israeli Prime Minister Benjamin Netanyahu put out a series of tweets just blasting them for their affiliations, for what they've done in the past. But he also put in this key point of information right here. He says, nonetheless, if Congresswoman Tlaib submits a humanitarian request to visit her relatives, the Minister of Interior has announced that he will consider her request on the condition that she pledges not to act to promote the boycotts against Israel during her visit. All right, so Tlaib said she wanted to visit her grandmother, and the Israeli government said, put in that request for a humanitarian trip, and you can do it. Okay, so guess what? She put in that request, and here is what she wrote. She said, I would like to request admittance to Israel in order to visit my relatives, and specifically my grandmother, who is in her 90s and lives in Bet al-Faqwa. This could be my last opportunity to see her. I will respect any restrictions and will not promote boycotts against Israel during my visit. Okay, so the Israeli government got that letter, talked about how her grandmother's in her 90s, may be her last opportunity, so they granted the request. They said she could do it. But does she do the trip? No. Instead, she uses that as another opportunity to get in front of the media and push her anti-Israel comments. And here's what she tweeted. She says, when I won, it gave the Palestinian people hope that someone will finally speak the truth about the inhumane conditions. I can't allow the state of Israel to take away that light by humiliating me and use my love for my city to bow down to their oppressive and racist policies. Okay, so that was one. And then she added another one. She said, silencing me and treating me like a criminal is not what she wants from me. It would kill a piece of me. I have decided that visiting my grandmother under these oppressive conditions stands against everything I believe in, fighting against racism, oppression, and injustice. Okay, so much for possibly the last opportunity to see her grandmother, which is what she stated in her official letter. It sounds to me like she was using that as an excuse to get to the trip, and so she could draw attention against Israel and promote herself. Because right now, I guess her grandmother's not that important to actually take the trip. She'd rather get sound bites in the media blasting Israel and things like that than actually do the trip. So Trump jumped in classic President Trump fashion, and he tweeted this. He says, Representative Tlaib wrote a letter to Israeli officials desperately wanting to visit her grandmother. Permission was quickly granted, whereupon Tlaib obnoxiously turned the approval down, a complete setup. The only real winner here is Tlaib's grandmother. She doesn't have to see her now. So that was accurate. That was awesome because, again, this is just her grandmother was used as a pawn in order for her to get there so she could draw attention to whatever she wants to do, anti-Israel, pro-Tlaib, and it's all about her. It certainly wasn't about her grandmother. But that wasn't all Trump had to say this weekend, because some very interesting information came out over the course of late last week, and it really got Trump's attention over the weekend, and that is regarding the New York Times. And here's what he tweeted. He says, "The failing New York Times is one of the most devastating portrayals of bad journalism in history, got caught by a leaker that they are now shifting from their phony Russian collusion narrative, the Mueller report and his testimony were a total disaster, to a racism witch hunt." All right. So basically, some information leaked out about a New York Times town hall meeting. We'll get more into that, where they discussed Trump's strategy. And President Trump added this to his tweets as well. He says, "Journalism has reached a new low in the history of our country. It is nothing more than an evil propaganda machine for the Democrat Party. The reporting is also false, biased, and evil that has now become a very sick joke. But the public is aware. Hashtag crooked journalism." So what's this all about? Like I mentioned, the New York Times got together a town hall with some executives, reporters, things like that. It was recorded, and that was leaked to Slate magazine, which put out a transcript of it. And it's amazing when you read it, because it just shows, one, their fixation on racism, even outside of President Trump, is just, it's insane. It's intense. And basically everything that they are focused on is racism. I mean, the whole, one reporter, it really stood out to me. She asked a question of the leadership of the editor, saying, how are we supposed to basically frame our stories knowing that the country was, built on racism, and should we use that as our foundation? I mean, give me a break. This shows how far journalism has gone from a professional level endeavor to one of just left-wing advocacy. It's nuts. But here's a report from the Washington Times. It says, "Conservatives were stunned by the transcript of the staff town hall led by Executive Director Dean Beckett, a recording of which was reportedly leaked to Slate, which posted what was described as a transcript. This is a smoking gun. It shows the most powerful news organization in the country congratulating itself for setting the anti-Trump narrative on Russia collusion and seamlessly transitioning to setting a narrative of Trump as racist after collusion flopped," said legal insurrection's William A. Jacobson, a Cornell Law School professor. So then Senator Cruz added some of his comments too. He tweeted this. He says, "There was a time when journalists covered news. The New York Times has given up on even pretending anymore. Today they are Pravda, a propaganda outlet by liberals, for liberals. These remarks at their own town hall are a scandal and would be a firing offense at any real journalistic outlook." Okay. And again, I read through this, and it's just nuts. Their fixation on Trump, their fixation on race, and they want to bring it all together. I mean, America is one of the most welcoming, non-racist countries in the entire world, yet the left chooses that to demonize and attack its political opponents. And it's just nuts. And that's the New York Times. So my question is, or President Trump's question over the weekend was, is this leaking over to Fox News as well? He was asked about Fox News, and he had some very interesting comments regarding them over the weekend. Take a look.
I'll tell you, Fox is a lot different than it used to be, I can tell you that. Juan Williams, then they have the wonderful woman that gave Hillary Clinton the questions. That was a terrible thing. And all of a sudden, she's working for Fox.
So, of course, President Trump was talking about Donna Brazile, who used to head the Democrat National Committee, was a Clinton advisor for a long time, and was caught feeding debate questions to Hillary Clinton when she was running for president in preparation for the CNN debate. This is what happened, and apparently Fox News thought it was a good idea to hire her. And here's more from President Trump.
Fox has changed, and my worst polls have always been from Fox. There's something going on at Fox, I'll tell you right now, and I'm not happy with it.
So my question to you is, does President Trump have a point? I mean, they've got Juan Williams, they've got Shepard Smith, they've got Chris Wallace, and I mean, Donna Brazile, what does she bring to the table? In what meeting did they say, we need her to help the ratings? This is a must hire. I don't get that. I don't see that meeting. It just doesn't make sense. And yet she's, one of the cast now. And again, President Trump brings up some interesting points, but I want to know what you think. I mean, do you think that President Trump is right. Do you think he has to worry about Fox News? Are they being infiltrated by the left now too? It's just really interesting. And finally, I want to talk about Alexandria Ocasio-Cortez because she gave an interview late last week that it just really, in her mind, sums up Trump supporters. And it's going to be no surprise it wasn't a surprise to me. It won't be a surprise to you, but it's just absolutely outrageous that she will just say this stuff in public and think that it's okay. So she was asked about Trump supporters, and here was what she said.
Trump relied on a coalition, and a core part of that coalition were racists, building a coalition with all sorts of other people that could be susceptible to racist views if they were blanketed and layered and made people feel good about it not being a racist thing.
All right, she talks about a core part. A core part of Trump's coalition are racist. That's what she says. That's how she got elected. And another core part of this coalition is those who are susceptible to racism. So, I mean, what does that even mean? Well, she goes along and explains it.
And so there are a lot of people who support Trump that genuinely don't believe that they are racist because we do not talk about or educate people on recognizing racism.
So there you go. You either support President Trump because you're a racist, or you support President Trump because you don't realize you're a racist and you haven't been educated yet. So in other words, she thinks that Trump supporters basically fall into two groups, racist and stupid. Those are the two, and she just flat out says it right there in her interview. And the left and the Democrats talk about tolerance and inclusiveness, and they're labeling a person who got millions and millions and millions of votes, 60 plus something million, as either racist or stupid. I mean, you might as well put that in the deplorables group like Hillary Clinton did, but this is Alexandria Ocasio-Cortez. This is what she's saying, and she's not alone with this. Beto O'Rourke over this weekend said that America is a racist nation built on a foundation of racism. And again, so when you hear that, when you hear Alexandria Ocasio-Cortez, when you hear what came out of the New York Times meeting, it really shows you that the left, if anything, they are coordinated, they are focused, and they are always on message. That's the thing. They are always on message. Now it's racism. And from the New York Times to Beto to Alexandria Ocasio-Cortez to anyone in the media, any presidential candidate, they're all singing the same tune, reading from the same playbook. And it's just absolutely nuts when you see example after example after example. But there it is. I mean, there was even more we could have packed into today's show that shows this agenda. But I just wanted to leave you with that. Let me know what you think in the comments on President Trump and Fox News and this whole fiasco with Rashida Tlaib and using her grandmother. I mean, this could be her last opportunity to see her, and yet she says, no thanks. I'll score political points. I'll get media hits instead. It's just absolutely nuts. Folks, that's our show for today. I hope you enjoyed it. Please subscribe, and when you do, please hit that bell so you'll be notified, and we'll see you next time. I'm Bobby Eberly. This is a 13-minute news hour. Okay, friends, just a little reminder before you go, and no, this does not count against my 13 minutes. Please hit the subscribe button below and tell your friends. And if you happen to miss our last show, you can check it out right here. And also for great conservative news and commentary, please check out GOPUSA.com. All right, folks, we'll see you on the next show. Have a great day.